What if everything you thought you knew about the royal family's power structure was quietly flipped overnight? Behind palace doors, a shocking shift has reportedly taken place, one that could redefine the future of the monarchy. This isn't just about titles or traditions. It's about control, influence, and who truly holds the power at the highest level. Insiders claim that King Charles made a bold and calculated move, one that may have sidelined Queen Camilla and elevated Catherine, Princess of Wales, in ways no one saw coming. And what's even more surprising, a final desperate request was allegedly shut down instantly. No debate, no discussion. So what really happened? So, according to reports, King Charles III didn't physically take Queen Camilla's crown, but he may have taken something far more important: influence. And in a move that feels incredibly strategic, that influence appears to have been redirected straight to Catherine, Princess of Wales. The way this unfolded seems far more deliberate than anyone expected. What stands out most is that Camilla reportedly made one last effort to secure her position, yet the palace allegedly rejected her request outright. No meeting, no negotiation, just a firm decision. That's not a simple disagreement. That signals something much bigger, an institutional shift. When you step back and look at the timeline, this doesn't feel like a sudden betrayal. Instead, it looks more like a carefully planned transition that's been unfolding quietly for years, while public attention was focused elsewhere. Before diving deeper, take a moment to subscribe so you don't miss future updates and royal insights. Now let's go back to a key moment many people tend to forget. To truly understand the tension inside the palace today, you have to revisit the agreement made back in 2005. At the time, Camilla Parker Bowles was never meant to become queen. This wasn't speculation. It was part of a public understanding designed to ease backlash during her marriage to Prince Charles. The official plan stated she would be known as Princess Consort, not Queen. Later, Queen Elizabeth II expressed her wish for Camilla to eventually be recognized as Queen Consort, but the original messaging to the public was very different, and that distinction mattered. The royal family wasn't being modest. They were being cautious. Public sentiment was still deeply tied to Princess Diana, whose legacy remained overwhelmingly powerful. Elevating Camilla too quickly would have caused major backlash. But as time passed, that earlier promise began to fade. When Queen Elizabeth II passed away in 2022, Charles ascended the throne, and Camilla became Queen Consort without hesitation. The earlier Princess Consort narrative seemed to quietly disappear, leaving many to question whether the public had been misled. To some observers, it felt like a classic shift in strategy. After years of public scrutiny and controversy, Camilla had finally reached the top, but reports suggest her position may not have been as secure as it appeared. Inside the palace, insiders claim that Queen Camilla was not always included in key decisions. Despite her title, she was reportedly kept at a distance from major discussions about succession planning and the monarchy's long-term direction. Important decisions, such as public messaging, charitable priorities, and royal representation, were often made without her direct involvement. In other words, she had the title, the visibility, and the ceremonial role, but not necessarily full influence behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the public image of a warm relationship between Camilla and Catherine may not reflect reality. While they appeared polite and composed in public, as expected from senior royals, reports suggest their relationship was more formal than friendly. Interactions were professional, not personal. Observers often describe their dynamic as distant, almost diplomatic, like two figures maintaining appearances rather than sharing a genuine bond. And as this quiet distance continued, subtle changes began happening behind the scenes. The question is, if their relationship was never truly close, was it only a matter of time before that gap turned into a shift in power? As time went on, those subtle tensions inside the royal circle reportedly became harder to ignore. Behind closed doors, a shift was quietly taking shape, one that didn't rely on announcements or headlines, but on something far more powerful: access. Because in the royal family, influence isn't just about titles. It's about who gets heard and who doesn't. And according to insiders, Catherine, Princess of Wales, was gradually becoming the central figure in key conversations about the monarchy's future. At first, it didn't look unusual. Catherine had always been seen as a steady, reliable presence, someone who understood both tradition and modern expectations. Her public image remained consistently strong, and her role naturally expanded over time. But what changed wasn't just her visibility, it was her involvement. Reports suggest she began playing a more active role in discussions about the monarchy's direction, its public messaging, and how it connects with younger generations, especially in the United States. That kind of responsibility doesn't come without trust. And that's where things start to become very interesting. While Catherine's influence appeared to be growing, Queen Camilla's role reportedly remained more ceremonial. She continued to attend events, support charities, and represent the crown. But when it came to shaping long-term strategy, her involvement seemed limited. That contrast didn't go unnoticed. In fact, some royal watchers began pointing out a clear pattern. One figure was gaining quiet authority, while the others seemed to be standing still. Then came what many believe was the turning point. According to reports, Camilla made a final attempt to strengthen her position within the palace structure. The details of that request haven't been officially confirmed, but sources suggest it involved increasing her role in decision-making or securing a more defined level of influence. It wasn't an unreasonable move. After all, she held the title of Queen Consort. From the outside, it would seem natural for her to want a stronger voice in the monarchy's future. But what happened next shocked many observers. The request was reportedly declined, quickly and firmly. No extended discussions. No compromise. Just a clear and immediate decision. And that response speaks volumes. Because in an institution known for careful diplomacy and measured responses, a direct rejection like that suggests something deeper. It suggests the decision may have already been made long before the request was even submitted. So the question becomes, if that door was already closed, who was it being opened for? All signs seem to point in one direction. Catherine, Princess of Wales. Her growing role wasn't sudden. It was the result of years of careful positioning, consistent public support, and trust built within the royal institution. And perhaps most importantly, she represents something the monarchy increasingly needs: stability combined with modern appeal. For audiences in the United States especially, Catherine's image resonates strongly. She's often seen as relatable, composed, and forward-looking, qualities that help maintain global interest in the royal family. And in a time when the monarchy faces ongoing scrutiny, that kind of connection matters more than ever. Meanwhile, King Charles III appears to be focused on shaping a more streamlined and future-ready monarchy. That likely means making difficult decisions about roles, responsibilities, and who takes center stage moving forward. And sometimes, those decisions aren't announced. They're simply carried out quietly, step by step. So while nothing has been officially confirmed, the pattern is becoming harder to ignore. One figure rising steadily behind the scenes, another being kept at a respectful but noticeable distance. And if this really is a transition of influence, then the biggest question still remains. Was this always part of the plan? So now we come to the bigger picture, and this is where everything starts to connect. If you look closely, this doesn't feel like a sudden shift. It feels like a long-term strategy finally reaching its final stage. Because in an institution like the monarchy, nothing this significant happens by accident. King Charles III has always been known for thinking ahead, planning not just for the present, but for the legacy he leaves behind. And shaping that legacy means making choices about who will carry the monarchy forward in a rapidly changing world. That's where Catherine, Princess of Wales, becomes central to the story. She represents continuity, but also evolution. She respects tradition, yet connects with modern audiences in a way that feels natural, not forced. And in today's global landscape, especially with strong public interest from the United States, that balance is incredibly valuable. Now compare that with the position of Queen Camilla. Her journey to becoming Queen Consort was long and complicated. Over time, she earned a place within the institution, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee long-term influence over its future direction. And that's the key difference. Because titles can be given, but influence is carefully assigned. If the reports are accurate, then what we're seeing isn't removal, it's repositioning. Camilla remains part of the monarchy, fulfilling her duties and maintaining her role. But when it comes to shaping what comes next, the focus appears to be shifting elsewhere. Quietly, strategically, intentionally. And that brings us back to that reported final request. The fact that it was declined so quickly suggests one important thing. The decision had already been made. Not in that moment, but long before it. So what does this mean for the future? It likely signals a monarchy that is preparing for its next chapter sooner rather than later. A structure where roles are more clearly defined, influence is more concentrated, and public connection is prioritized like never before. And at the center of that future, all signs continue to point toward Catherine. But here's what makes this story so compelling. Nothing has been officially announced. There's been no dramatic statement, no public confirmation, just a series of subtle changes that, when put together, tell a much bigger story. And sometimes in the royal world, what isn't said speaks the loudest. So the real question isn't just about what has already happened. It's about what happens next. Will this quiet shift become more visible over time? Will roles continue to evolve behind scenes? Or will the palace maintain this careful silence while the balance of influence continues to change? One thing is certain. The monarchy is not standing still. And if this transition continues on its current path, the future may look very different from what many expected. And that's where the tension quietly builds. Because when change happens without announcement, it creates something even more powerful than headlines: anticipation. Inside the palace, every appearance, every speech, every small decision starts to carry more meaning. People begin to watch more closely. They look for signals, patterns, confirmation. And over time, those subtle signals begin to form a clearer picture. A picture of transition. For King Charles, this may be less about the present, and more about securing stability for the years ahead. The monarchy has faced growing pressure to modernize, to remain relevant, and to maintain strong global support, especially from audiences beyond the United Kingdom. That kind of pressure doesn't allow for uncertainty. It demands clarity, direction, and above all, trust in the individuals who will carry the institution forward. And that brings the focus back, once again, to Catherine. Her role isn't just increasing in visibility. It's becoming symbolic. Symbolic of continuity. Symbolic of renewal. Symbolic of what the monarchy may need to survive the next generation. Meanwhile, the silence from the palace continues. No confirmations. No denials. Just carefully managed appearances and measured steps forward. But in many ways, that silence may be the clearest message of all. Because if everything were staying the same, there would be no need for such careful restraint. So now, the world is watching more closely than ever. Watching for the next appearance, the next decision, the next subtle shift that reveals where things are truly heading. Because whether it's acknowledged or not, something is changing. And if this really is the beginning of a new chapter, then history may look back on this moment, not as a sudden turning point, but as the quiet start of a transformation that was hiding in plain sight all along. And now, everything comes down to what happens next. Because moments like this don't stay quiet forever. Sooner or later, subtle shifts turn into visible change. A new priority here. A different presence there. A role that once seemed secondary, slowly moving to the center. And when that happens, it won't need an official announcement. People will feel it. Watch closely. Who stands beside King Charles at key moments? Who represents the monarchy on the global stage? Who becomes the face of its future? Because those answers won't just reflect protocol. They'll reveal direction. If this path continues, the monarchy may be entering one of its most carefully managed transitions in modern history. Not dramatic, not sudden, but precise, intentional, and impossible to ignore once it's complete. And when the dust settles, many may realize something surprising. This wasn't a story about a single decision. It was about a gradual shift in influence, one that redefined roles without ever needing to say it out loud. So as the world continues to watch, one thing becomes clearer with every passing moment. The future of the monarchy isn't being announced. It's being quietly shaped. And that quiet shaping may be the most powerful move of all. Because when change happens without resistance, without headlines, without controversy, it settles in deeper. It becomes accepted before it's even questioned. And by the time the world fully recognizes what's changed, it already feels normal. This is how institutions survive. Not through sudden reinvention, but through careful evolution. Step by step, moment by moment, decision by decision. So maybe the Real story was never about who lost influence, but about who was being prepared to carry it next. And if you've been paying close attention, the signs have been there all along. Not loud, not obvious, but consistent. Which leads to one final thought. What we're witnessing right now may not just be a shift in roles. It may be the foundation of the monarchy's next era. So as this story continues to unfold, one thing is clear. What we're witnessing isn't just a moment, it's a movement. A quiet, calculated evolution that could redefine the monarchy for years to come. No sudden announcements. No dramatic reveals. Just a steady shift happening right before our eyes. And maybe that's what makes it so powerful. Because in the end, the biggest changes aren't always the loudest ones. They're the ones that happen in silence. Until one day, everything is different. If you found this insight interesting, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Because this story is far from over, and the next move could change everything.